Cuyahoga County Public Safety and Justice Affairs Committee this beautiful September day, September 1, in the year of our Lord, 2015. Roll call.
Calling the roll, Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Greenspan. Here. Mr. Germano.
Here.
Mr. Hairston.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Here.
There is a quorum. Also like the record to reflect that Councilman Miller is in attendance.
As always, welcome, Mr. Miller. Public comment?
No, Mr. Chair, no one is signed in.
In your packet, you have the minutes of August 18th. If they're in order, I'll accept a motion of approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Resolution 2015-0170.
Resolution number 2015-0170, authorizing an amendment to contract number CE 1200346 with Applewood Centers Incorporated for staff secure shelter program and placement planning day report services for the period 6/1/2012 through 6/30/2015, to extend the time period to 6/30/2016, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $705,360.
Good afternoon. Always a
afternoon.
pleasure to see this committee. Karen Lippman from Juvenile Court. Today we have an amendment to our Placement Planning Day Report program. If you remember, this is a program we have for boys who are in what we call our placement planning continuum. These are boys that are waiting for a residential placement site. Instead of them sitting in a shelter care facility or in our detention center, we have them in what we call a day report program. It is 6 days a week. They get picked up in the morning. They spend the whole day there. They get 3 meals there. They're picked up before breakfast. They don't get back till after 8 o'clock at night. And then while they're there, they get education. They get cognitive behavioral therapy, and other recreational programming. This got passed out? So, and I always like to give you guys color graphs, because color graphs are fun. And what we did was we looked at our Placement Planning Day Report program, and we had sort of, going into this when it was a new program several years ago, a couple of hypotheses, and we actually wanted to see if we were right. One of them was that youth that would go to the Placement Planning Day Report program would perhaps not have to go to a residential facility and would be able to be stabilized and in a good way that they could actually go home and stay in the community. And the first two little pie charts there show you that we did have a number of youth that were able to stay in the community instead of going to a residential placement. We also thought that if youth had sort of this little bit of a jump start on the treatment component of a residential program, that their stay at residential would be shorter. And we actually found that to be true as well, that we had a number of youth that had a shorter length of stay in their residential treatment for youth that were in the Placement Planning Day Report program as opposed to those who were not. And then the last hypothesis is that youth would be more successful at their residential treatment facility. So even if they only had sort of a small dose, if you will, of the treatment in the Placement Planning Day Report, it was a lot of information that they maybe would then hear again, and it might stick the second time. And we actually found that to be true as well. So this is a great program. It keeps kids out of the detention center, keeps kids out of the shelter care facilities, and it actually helps them be more successful in the residential stay.
I've noticed the completion rate is less than 50%. Take us through an example of one of these folks that does not complete the program. What happens?
There are youth that do either get in fights or disruptive or are not participating. Those would be youth that would be kicked out of the program. Let me take sort of a step back there. So before these youth go into the Placement Planning Day Report program, it's actually part of our detention continuum. So they go down to the detention center and they go from their courtroom where they're sent to placement planning continuum. There's some procedures that have to be done, and they end up down at the detention center, and from there the plan is for them to go straight to the facility that same day and finish up that day, or at least be, have their admissions set up for the very next day. So there's really no time lag. And when they're down in detention center, they're told that they have one chance, that they can stay home in the evening and go to this program, or they can sit in the detention center. And so they know that's the consequence of not participating and not being successful in the program. So back to your question, when youth are unsuccessful and they're kicked out, they go to the detention center. If a youth doesn't attend, doesn't get on the van when it comes to pick them up, and is not around, a kid that runs, that's AWOL, he would be unsuccessful from the program. A kid who's disruptive in the program, either with other youth that are there or with the instructors there, it's not really participating, they would be unsuccessfully terminated from the program.
Questions? Mr. Miller, was it?
The $705,360 in the resolution, has that been budgeted for, or is this a new program?
It is budgeted for. It's actually all reclaim funds. It's all state grant funds, so it doesn't hit HHS or general fund at all. And it is part of that grant program.
And how long have we been doing this for?
We started in July of 2012.
Okay.
Further questions? Mr. Greenspan? No. Okay. Because of the dates, I see this needs to move forward.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. No further questions. I'll accept a motion for Resolution 2015-0170 to the full council at the next council meeting for second reading suspension.
So moved.
Second. Favor? Aye. Against? Thank you. That's all we have as far as legislation. Euclid Jail. We have an update on the Euclid Jail.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Council. I'm going to be bringing up Ken Mills, the Regional Jail Director, to give a full synopsis of the Euclid Jail. I just wanted to start by saying the average population out there now is 78 out of the 80 beds at all times. So we've pushed to get to full capacity with the overflow from the jail. And with that, I'll bring up Ken Mills. He'll brief you on the rest of it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Committee. I'm Ken Mills, the Director of Regional Corrections. As Chief Bova said, we finally reached full capacity, operational capacity, where we can fill every bed in the facility. We average around 70. Right now, we're at about 76 to 78 in there. We have a high turnover there because people come in and leaving. But we're going to try to stay in that range. Hopefully by next week, we'll have it 79 to 80 and just remain there. As far as, you had mentioned to me, Mr. Chair, that you wanted to update on some of the expenses coming up.
Well, I just noticed that there's some more unforeseen expenses that were popping up out there. I want to know where we're at.
As far as unforeseen expenses, I don't anticipate any more. We are entering into phase 3 of the initial of the capital of the initial build out, the $600,000 budget. Public Works is managing that. It's money that was planned and it's as scheduled. And that's the update of the fire alarm system and readjusting, putting more areas on the backup generator, the booking area, and some other areas that we identified. And they started pushing forward with that last week. And that will close out. When they're through with that, will close out the initial $600,000 to it. We had the grant money come through to redo the cameras, to do an upgrade to the camera system out there, which is moving forward. We should be seeing that fairly soon. But beyond that, I don't anticipate any besides usual maintenance that pops up or, unforeseen, but nothing we're fully operational now.
Okay, questions? Mr. Greenspan?
Thank you. Of the 78 or so, how many of them are Euclid inmates versus county inmates?
Euclid runs, in the agreement, we have 20 a day, and they usually stay between anywhere from 12 and 20 we take in of Euclids a day.
And do we have the capacity, if they're deficient in their 20, to utilize
Yes, sir.
those cells?
Yes, sir. We don't keep them, I don't keep cells sitting for them.
Okay.
We bring them through, we keep it filled up.
Okay. Of the $600,000, that was effectively CapEx that the county was going to invest, but Euclid was going to reimburse us, I believe, $150,000 over 4 years.
Yes, sir.
And you said with phase 3, we should complete the full $600,000
Yes, sir.
appropriation. What, I know I don't have it in front of me, but when the contract was put in place, there were a number of things that constituted that $600,000. What, have all of those elements been, or at the completion of phase 3, will all of those elements have been completed, or were there some that weren't and other items that were added?
I don't know for certain, I haven't went back, but it's my understanding from the documentation I have that that's everything that we had planned will be done at the end of the 600,000.
Okay, and if I remember correctly, the county was to put another up to $250,000 of unreimbursed CapEx, meaning it was our investment into the deal. Have we reached or exceeded that investment?
Donna, excuse me, she's handled that part of it. They said the counties matched the 250.
The county, when you asked if we exceeded, I don't understand.
Well,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, in the contract, we were to advance Euclid $600,000, to which they were going to pay us back, and then the county was to put another $250,000 in, which was not to be reimbursed. That was our contribution.
To the HVAC, the roof, and those, and there were some other.
Excuse me,
things
can
in there.
you speak into the
Right
microphone?
here, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. So, yeah, for the HVAC and the roof and some other things. Now, if we've maxed spending all of that, I don't know. That's a public works question. I can't tell you if everything's been spent. My understanding is the HVAC is complete and the roof is complete and things like that. I do know that they started reimbursing us on the 600,000. I invoiced them semi-annually, but whether we've spent the entire 850,000, that was kind of a public works question.
Can someone
I can find out.
Yeah.
find out? On the you might want to stay up there. No, you as well.
Don't run.
That was good. The video system that we did receive a grant for, was that known at the time we entered into the agreement that we would have to replace that system?
The system that was in there functions. It was last September when the grant money come available that we put in for the grant. And I can't speak for the decision process at that time, but it's an upgrade for us. Like I'm trying to upgrade the cameras in Jail 1 currently for officer safety through it.
Now, if we had not received that grant, would we still have moved forward with updating the video
No.
system? No, it was only because of the grant that we did that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. And I know that, or I recall, I shouldn't say I know, but I recall that we, from another sheriff's budget, spent $50,000 for some IT as part of the initial move-in.
Yes, yes, sir.
So that was in addition to the 250, in addition to the 600.
Correct. That was from the discretionary funds. The 250 was part of the general fund, yes, sir.
Has there been any additional appropriation from any other sources, whether it be discretionary funds other than this 900,000? Meaning the 600 plus the 250 plus the 50, the grant, setting a grant aside for the video equipment, have there been any other, because that was a grant, so have there been any other funds put into the project?
You can go ahead.
I don't know if you recall, but it was at the last meeting, actually, the discretionary funds, I thought we had said it was 100,000. It was 100,000, and that 100,000 discretionary funds is now 117,000, but my understanding is we are And that includes the 1,800 we had to add into this 100,000 for the cameras. But I'm being told that we're pretty much at the very tail end.
Okay, do we have a final accounting as to, we know we lost money on the deal because of, I'll just call it out, because Norberto poorly managed the integration of the system. I'm not bashful about saying that. Do we know what that cost us at the end of the day? Meaning, I know that the original plan had effectively day one, 80 inmates and staffing appropriately and revenue coming in to offset that from Euclid. And none of that really happened because of the staging, whether it was the facility wasn't ready or what have you. Do we know what we lost on that, on the implementation of the project before, from day one to 100% operational?
Well,
Dollar-wise.
I do know from day one because we were staffing it, until we actually started putting inmates in there, that number was 300,000. That was back in 2014. If you're asking me from day one until today, where it's at full capacity, I don't have a lump sum number, but I can get that for you.
Yeah, actually, that was going to be my follow-up question, if you could
Absolutely.
provide that, especially as we go into the 2016, 2017 budget, which actually brings me to a question. Will that be integrated? Will that be presented as a separate component of the jail? I guess I'm asking the director of the jail budget, or will it be integrated into board and care?
We were actually discussing that this morning, and I think it's important also to point out that we have no prisoner board and care anymore either.
Okay.
We have been able to get rid of that, which was about $90,000 a month that we haven't had since March or April.
Okay, so will the Euclid jail and subsequent facilities be presented individually and then roll up into a summary document?
Actually, the chief and I were discussing that prior to coming over here.
I'll be sitting down with fiscal. We're doing the analysis this week, as a matter of fact, and we're going to determine whether we're going to do it as one package or keep it separate as it's been.
Okay. All right, good. I have no further questions.
Okay, anyone else? Okay.
Thank you.
I think we're gonna get to a point where we're gonna have to start discussions. I know the Justice Center had their review as far as fixing it, replacing it, and I think in the coming years, we're gonna have to make a determination what we're gonna do with that building. Any dollars going in there now is really good after bad. And watching these satellite jails popping up and the money we're putting in and the return on investment really, to me, screams that you have to probably build another jail on with the Justice Center. What would be the ideal amount of beds that we would need to go forward the next 50 to 60 years?
The minimum would be 3,000, 4,000 would be the maximum. So anywhere in between there.
So,
Because if we brought all the prisoners together now with the 2,100 or 2,000 average we have now, including federal people that would pay, we would be almost at 3,000 now.
right, but you
And I'm
feel-
talking about all the
you
county
feel
prisoners.
comfortable that a 50-year fix on this, 4,000 would be the number, or would it be higher? Because the problem I think that we all make when people that sit in my position is they always build for today, and they
Correct.
never look at tomorrow.
Correct.
And you have to extend your thoughts beyond today, and it never happens. So if we were to take this kind of a step, and it would be a financial burden on the county, no question about it, but what do? Maintain a building that's fallen apart, that was antiquated day one when it opened? And especially the problems that we have with those jails, and then having to add jail two. Do you keep jail two and build it in a reasonable proximity to jail two if you do that? Questions we're gonna have to answer down the line, but on this side, I would challenge you to start thinking deeply about a facility that will serve the county. And when I say the county, I'm talking municipalities too, because they're getting rid of their jails and combining them with us, which makes a lot of sense on the dollars and cents side also, not just on the practical side. So I would challenge you to start thinking right now as to what that might look at. Has anyone spoken with you, Mr. Bova, regarding a jail into the future? Or
We've had to have preliminary discussions if it were to come to fruition.
Okay.
Correct. we're already working on it, and the new jail, clearly the jail that we're dealing with now is archaic, and we're grandfathered in on a lot of the new modern stuff we're grandfathered in. So a new facility clearly would be way more efficient.
So what, have you thought beyond keeping or renew or building new?
Well, selfishly, we'd like to build new, but, you know,
My guess is if you built a justice center, who's ever grandfathered these cells in is gonna take a close look at that, and maybe the grandfather clause is gonna mysteriously disappear. And believe me, I know the cost of jails, and they're astronomical. So that's why I think we should, and it sounds to me like the discussions have already been happening on your side.
nothing formal, just all preliminary, so,
Well, this is all
right.
non-formal. Mr. Miller, did you have a question?
I just want to follow up on the chairman's excellent line of questioning. There are two very large projects out in our future, and one is what we do with the Justice Center, and the second one is what our role is in the Metro Campus project, and until we get some sense of what our plan is about each of those two, it's going to be hard to know what we can do with all the other things that we have on the county's plate. And so my question, just focusing on the Justice Center and the jail, because the other is obviously out of your area. My question is do you have some sense as to in what time frame you might have a broad plan in place as to what you think you want to do and what it would cost and how we're going to fund it?
Councilman Miller, through the chairman, I believe that decision will come through the county executive. And we'll follow his lead on that when he gives us a directive when to start determining if there's the financial resources are in place for the new building, then that's when we would help design our part of it.
Okay. And the other thing is that I just need to offer a comment about the 4,000 number. We in the United States have by far the highest rates of incarceration in comparison to almost any other country in the world, and we need to do some serious thinking as to how we can manage more people in ways other than incarceration, and we should be thinking of the number 50 years from now being 2,000 rather than 4,000, and how would we make that happen, and what can we do differently? So I just offer that for your consideration as part of this broad level thinking that needs to take place.
Again, Councilman Miller, to the chairman, I think some of our initiatives with the real-time GPS for low-level nonviolent offenders, 24-hour watch on them, I think that clearly assists in the population as we speak. And who knows what more avenues we'll be able to follow in the future. I don't know what the technology will be 20 years from now because it's advancing so fast. So we may be able to have a less population, but you got to prepare for the worst, I would think.
Understood. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a point?
Sure.
Just two points. One, we do have ongoing conversations regarding the Justice Center. It's a top priority of the executive, and it's not something that he's looking to put off as far as the discussion. So this is going to be very serious discussions, and I know you mentioned some sort of a time frame, and it's definitely not years away. It's months away. So it's a top priority, and we are looking to address. And the second issue, I just would like to piggyback on what Councilman Miller's comment. I've done a lot of research and looked at the national trends of what's going to happen in the future with our criminal justice system, and I think as a community, we need to take the lead. I think we need to be in the business of reducing the jail population and not increasing the jail population. As we talk to our community partners throughout the community, there's just a lot more avenues for people, whether it's different avenues of housing, of job training, but there are different opportunities instead of incarcerating people to make sure that they have those opportunities in their neighborhoods, on the street. And I think it's something that we have to look at, our criminal justice system, and the amount of millions and billions of dollars that we paid over the years. We have not received the return on investment that we have needed. And so I think we have to really take a different look at what we're doing. I think we have to be more efficient. We have to be smarter within our system. And the executive and myself and Mr. Bova, we've had these conversations with the prosecutor and with local prosecutors, with the administrative judge, with other judges. And I think we have some very strong community partners to make sure that we're in the business of reducing the jail population, not increasing it in the future.
In my conversations with the executive, I know he's keen on and concerned about where to go with the Justice Center. And my thoughts by bringing this up right now, not only does it segue into our next item of discussion, it's a reality that we face, and almost for the past 4 years, I don't think we've been really facing that reality, much like the Metro situation. It would be very helpful from the council side to know the direction in which the executive intends to go, and I think I know his intention, and I agree with his intention. I just want the administration to know and the directors to know that, once again, and I hate to do this, but it seems I always have to do this, with the previous administration and this administration, we're not adversaries up here. We're very helpful. We have proved in a short period of time that not only can we get things done, we deliver on the promises that we make as far as being able to turn big projects around and get them going. An example would be the not only the convention center, which we inherited a little bit of, and finished off the medical mart, but the hotel. The low hanging fruit's done. Now we got to go to the problem. And again, I do know the executive has a keen interest on moving in a plan. I just want everybody to understand that we're there and we're going to be part of it. We want to be part of it, and we want to fix these things. And it seems to me that part of the fix, Mr. Miller, is the population you want to get down, but you have to have the beds available if it doesn't get down. And which goes to our second discussion, not only with juvenile court regarding a GPS, but with the common police court. What reception have we had through the common police court now that program is how many months old?
Since October 2014, so.
Okay, so we're coming up on a year. Mm-hmm. Do we have buy-in from the court?
I think from the top of the court we do, and there's over 100 on GPS right now. I don't know the exact number, but slowly but surely they're coming on board. They're just it's open to every judge now. So, and we work with Judge Russo all the time, and I know Greg Popovich has had communications with all the judges. Don't forget that this program's here.
Well, I think quite honestly that's a sad display of movement. It's a very sad display, and to have it available to all the judges and not all the judges participating tells me that we don't really have partners over there. We have people concerned about the welfare of their names, and I understand their concerns. You put somebody on GPS and they go out and they do something, it's going to come back. But guess what? You run for a public office, you take risks, you're put in a position to make decisions, and that's what you live with. And not always is it good. But if we have a technology available that's proved to have worked, and we understand there are going to be those situations where it won't work, because let's face it, the criminal is always advanced, but we're always trying to catch up to them. But if we could put the people on the street that need to be back on the street and working in jobs that we would hopefully that they have and be able to follow them, that's what we should be doing. I don't think we should be out there begging the courts to move on this. And I know Judge Russo is participating in this, but he's the director of the judges. This should be a mandate. This isn't patty cake time. Again, these are dollars and cents that we're trying to save, and this is going to be brought up when they come in here for their money that we provide to them. And if they're not going to participate, well, then maybe some dollars should be taken away. this needs to be done, and I would assume you're gonna stand on a position that it works.
Absolutely. I think we validated ourselves within the last 10 months.
Mr. Germana?
I'm just wondering, Chief, what's the efficiency of it? I mean, how many problems do we have with this?
Far as I know, the last I heard, which probably was a month ago, 5 had violated it, that actually cut it off, and we caught them within the 24 hours. So that's pretty good, because we knew they were cutting it as it was happening. So it immediately registers that someone's tampering with it, so. That's how
If
effective
everyone
it is.
hasn't seen this, I would suggest they go over to Justice
I was
Center.
about to say that. Maybe we can.
Yeah, we're right on the first floor of the Justice Center.
It's, if you could go a little bit more in depth as to the ability of you to be able to program a virtual fence, basically, in which they cannot violate. I mean, it's really advanced stuff, and I was kind of blown away.
Physical fence for your dog.
And it's monitored 24/7, and they go outside the restricted area. They were notified instantly.
Absolutely.
As they are notified by voice.
Correct.
On the
On the ankle bracelet.
you are in violation.
Wow.
And we immediately contact them by the phone we set up with them. And, if a guy's in the smoke, taking a smoke, and he walks out of his restricted area, it immediately notifies us, notifies him. We tell him to get back or we're coming. And immediately you can see the dot go back into the zone. And if he doesn't, we go get him. And we worked it out with the courts that, if it's in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, somebody violates and they don't follow our orders to go back, we immediately pick them up. We can immediately arrest them. We used to have to go through probation and everything. So they put that into the orders. But it's unbelievable technology. So,
Did somebody have something down here?
and it's not costing us anything.
It allows the individuals to still continue work and.
Absolutely. Well, they have inclusion zones, so if I have an 8 to 4 job and the judge allows me to go, then we watch the dot go to his place of business, and then it should come home at 4 o'clock if his shift's over at that time. And it's all included. The probation department actually enters every single thing that the judge puts the restrictions on. So that's what makes it so good, is that a person as low-level, first-time offender can go and actually continue to work.
If you could, Trevor, set up a tour over there for this. This is, Mr. Miller, this is your concern and my example of the technology to try and clear those beds. If we had buy-in from everyone and on a mandatory basis. Again, I understand the judge's position that if somebody goes out and violates, that it could be a reflection on them. But I don't think it should be taken that way. This is technology that's available, been made available, and they have only 100. What ballpark, as far as who's in the jail, that would qualify for this program?
My personal goal when I was the sheriff was, and myself and Sheriff Pinckney, we sat down and we thought that possibly our goal was to have each judge put 10 people out on it, which would be 340, which brings the population under 2,000 at all times. So does that mean that, one judge may be able to have 12 that fit the spectrum? Or, some have 8, I don't know. But our goal was to have 10 each, so it's 340. That's what our goal was after the end of the first year.
And savings ballpark?
Millions.
And that's, Mr. Miller, I think that's the wave of the future. We just have to get everybody to buy in. And again, I don't want to pick on the judges. They have a difficult job and they have to make decisions. But once they're turned over to the jail facilities, we should be able to get their permission to put these people back into society while they wait for whatever determination that they're in for. And it's really a great thing. And I think the more pressure we put on, or the more we suggest to the courts to get moving on this, is going to be good.
And in all fairness to the judges, they have the full assessment. So the people they pick to put on it, clearly they have more knowledge of, all we know them as the people that come over and their number, so.
Right. Mr. Miller.
Your item on the agenda says update regarding juvenile detention center and electronic monitoring of juvenile offenders. Are we doing this at the adult jail and the juvenile jail, or just one or the other?
We're doing it at the, I think they're doing it at the Juvenile too, and I know they're here to speak on that. So they're doing it, but I don't know if it's at the level we're doing it. We have two different systems going here. We monitor our own. And I know that Juvenile does it different, so.
Okay.
That's why I had them. I thought this was a great segue into that. We have the program up and running, as does Juvenile. And if Juvenile would, please, Ms. Littman.
Mr. Chair, just
Mr. Miller, or Mr. Greenspan, I'm sorry.
great, thank you. Just to follow, just so the objective was up to 340.
That was our goal, correct.
How much hardware do you have? How many could you accommodate today?
We can accommodate probably another 50 today.
Without
As we get the potential people coming in, all we do is call the company and they send more. So if I called them tonight and said we need 100 by Thursday, it'd be here.
And just to reiterate, so not only is it a cost savings, there's a revenue opportunity because we're saving $85 to $90 a day to house them. Plus, we're charging them
$8 a day.
$8.
$8, correct. Correct. We charge them $8 a day. So, and that's the ones that can pay. So the ones that are clearly indigent don't have to pay. So, but the $8 covers the ones that can't pay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Miller?
what percentage of our non-indigent and can pay?
I don't know that, Councilman Miller. Do we have a number on that, or?
I would imagine that's rather high. But still, the cost savings is there if they're not in jail.
Correct.
Correct. Currently, the percentage of inmates paying right now are at about 49%. So about half are paying and half are considered indigent. And the cost savings, and I know we're going with the $85, but if we're looking at just a marginal cost, that we pay $390 a day. We save at a marginal level about $10 to $11 a day. So there's still a savings. That's just looking at the marginal. If you want to add in the fixed and the variable, then yeah, you get up to the $85 per inmate per day, but you're still saving.
Okay.
Sure.
Mr. Germano?
What's the ratio of how many can a sheriff's deputy monitor? How many is each deputy monitoring? How many?
Well, clearly, if we get up to 300, then the sheriff would double his unit, which is presently 8 deputies. So 8 deputies are monitoring 124 hours a day, and that's with days off and stuff. And so even if they're not sitting in the station, it comes right to their phone. So it never, they don't have to sit in a station to do it. They can actually go out and I know that Sheriff Pinckney has them periodically just going to check, just a double check, just to throw them off like we do with the sex offenders. So that's just a double check that's not necessary, but he does it anyways.
Okay. Ms. Littman, Mr. Bova, if you just probably wait there, probably might need you. Now, Juvenile has a similar program?
No. We have, our electronic monitoring program is very different from what the sheriff has.
How so?
So we have sort of 2 programs at the court. One is for probation youth and one is for our home detention program. The most major differences in the program is that we do not own any of our equipment, where I believe the sheriff owns their equipment. We don't do our own installations. We have someone who's actually a subcontractor to our contract who actually does the installations. So that's sort of the main differences in our program.
So why wouldn't we combine programs?
We don't have anyone to do installations or to take the units off at the court. And we also, because we don't own our own equipment, we're not responsible for damaged and lost equipment, which is a huge problem with juveniles. They will cut it off, they will damage it, they will do everything to it. That is, we do not have to pay for that equipment. We don't ever have to replace the equipment. And if the contracted vendor wants to go after the parents or the youth to get recouped for those funds, that's on them to do that. So we always know that there's equipment that works that we can use for our youth. If equipment malfunctions, they'll just swap it out for us.
I ask the question again, why not combine programs? And if a youth or an adult were to damage property owned by Cuyahoga County, I can assume they're going to be paying Cuyahoga County. And I assume that the judges are going to make them pay.
Well, the other piece is that we don't use the GPS system nearly as much as we use the, we have 3 different types of equipment that we use. We have landline, we have cell phone, and we have GPS. Right now, with just looking at our home detention program, because they're the only ones who use the GPS, our probation staff don't use GPS, we only have 7% of our youth that will use the GPS system. So the other percentage of youth are all on our cell phone system, which is cheaper for us to use that, and it works actually better for those kids. That's what the staff find is more beneficial for them. The kids, where they're going and stuff is a lot different than adults. You know, they're either going to school, going to work, and then they're home. They don't have, they're not as transient, and if they are going to be transient, they're just going to cut the equipment off. And then we would have to be, we have a lot of equipment that is damaged and lost, and we would have to be buying a whole new set of equipment probably every 6 months.
Sounds to me like they got wise to the fact that you guys aren't gonna go after them and they're just gonna damage the merchandise.
No, I
Sounds
think
to
they would
me-
I think they would cut it off regardless.
So you're telling me a kid goes out there and cuts off his ankle bracelet and he doesn't end up in jail?
Oh, I didn't say he wouldn't be picked up and brought back to the detention center. I'm just saying that it's not gonna keep him from cutting it off again.
Oh, hey, you wanna go to jail, go to jail. I mean, that's why the jail's there. You got plenty of cells.
Well,
I mean, we'd like to keep them out, and it sounds to me like, how many bites of the apple are you gonna give these kids or these adults?
Well-
Mr. Bove, if you had an adult cut it off, what would happen?
He would be arrested for tampering with the electronic device. And also, we don't own our stuff, we lease it.
Oh, you do lease?
Yes.
So I ask, and I don't know, maybe it is cheaper with what you do, but why have we not looked to combine these processes to one company?
We did, but we saw, because at the time when we did this, so we're just about to go out for our RFP on this, and we had this conversation with the sheriff 2 years ago and said, actually, I think the sheriff wanted to piggyback on our RFP, and we talked about it, and the programs were totally, they weren't compatible with each other based on the equipment and not being responsible for the lost or stolen. And we just don't have anybody to do the installations. We have, they have a subcontractor who goes, we have to do installations at, not only at the detention center, but at all of our satellite probation offices as well. And we just have the vendor who's just responsible for the equipment. They inventory it. They, you know, if they want to go after the parents for costs, that's on them.
But you're paying for that, and I'm wondering, we're not capable of having deputy sheriffs apply this equipment?
We don't have deputy sheriffs who monitor this. It's all monitored by home detention officers or probation officers. So we don't utilize deputy sheriffs at all.
My point being is, we're here trying to save money, and, you know, if we have a program in place and we have deputy sheriffs available to do this, where we could save some dollars, why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we look at this? Who's determining that this is not compatible and we're gonna go in our own direction? There's a problem that we have with the courts. We have a computer system we like, doesn't work, but we like it. Tough with you gotta pay for it. Well, those days are over. It better work. Now I got a system here that works. Now I'm hearing from you got kids cutting stuff off. And I'd love to know the percentage of these kids that end up in jail by cutting them off, and if they're paying this back.
Well, they're not paying us back because it's not our equipment. Whether the vendor goes after them or their parents for that equipment, that's on them. But there's some that do get brought to the detention center, and there's some that's not. The policy and the best practice of the court is to keep kids in the least restrictive environment. We can't get to a point in our detention center where we're at capacity, because it's actually going to cost us more money to sanction a kid for cutting off equipment with sort of the end of the spectrum of putting them in the detention center. We saw what happened when we had a lot of gang activity in the detention center, or the detention center was at capacity, and our overtime costs were astronomical, our other expenses were astronomical.
With all due
and
respect,
yeah.
with all due respect, we cleaned that up for you. And to be real honest about it, when it got out into the public what was going on there, the real thing that cleaned that up was the fact that these judges had to go actually have hearings to move these kids over to the big boy jail. That's what cleaned it up. Not us adding 10 more COs over there. What cleaned it up was the county coming in, giving you 10 COs, because the judges were begging for it. Before they were hired and implemented, we made sure that the public knew the judges weren't having these hearings. And they had the hearings, problem solved. Bad kids are with bad guys. Bad guys with bad kids. Bad kid sits in corner, doesn't do anything anymore.
The court actually sent every youth originally, when they turned 18, downtown to the jail. The state law was changed, and we were unable to do that unless we had a hearing.
Right.
Since that happened, we've had...
And the hearings, my point to you is...
We had 42 hearings to transfer youth based on them being disruptive in the detention center.
And look at the dates on that. It was after you came here asking for 10 COs. I know this, I followed it. The judges weren't having hearings.
We
Judge
also
Sweeney
implemented...
stood there in front of us, and I'm like, why aren't you having hearings? We need 10 COs. You didn't need 10 COs. So you need to lean on the county for help, because we have experts in this. You're not, and I mean you, the court's not an expert in detention. They're not. They proved that. They couldn't figure out what their problem was. I'm a layperson, I knew what their problem was. They weren't having the hearings. You gotta have the hearing to move the kid downtown. And when they did that, all of a sudden, it's rosy over there. I haven't heard a word out of that place.
Well, I think there was a lot that went on that the judges implemented to change the situation. It wasn't just having a hearing and moving 42 youth to the adult system. We also did Ohio Peace Officer Training Academy training for 100% of the detention officers over there.
Who suggested that? The man standing behind you. Go ahead.
I don't know who suggested it, but it was the judges who made sure that that happened, and that all of those
It's called
all those detention.
responsibility. I mean, I'm not gonna give somebody a cookie for doing what they're supposed to do. I mean, come on, wake up. You got kids getting beat up in that justice center, and that man takes a walk around it and everything calms down. You have the hearings and the bad guys go away. Bad guys go away, things get better. And I'm just saying, we're here to help. And I don't need people patting themselves on the back. I'm not doing it, but I'm telling you who forced this issue was us. And you got 10 COs that I still state, and we'll find out during the budget, had no impact on calming things down over there because they weren't hired in time.
I think that there was an impact if you look at the numbers of staff injuries and the workers' comp claims that have occurred since we implemented the additional training and the additional detention officers that came over there, which were still not actually at our number. But looking at that there's been a lot. I don't think there was no silver bullet that fixed things. We also got all of that gang activity, all of those cases got to go through the system. We got those individuals that were involved with gangs out. We got the individuals trained. We did bring on additional detention officers who had a higher level of training and requirements to be eligible for that job. So I think the judges were absolutely behind making fixes, making changes, and getting things under control there. But I think it was a wonderful partnership with the county. I know that the judges very much appreciate the county being supportive of some of the changes we needed. But I do think that it was a partnership. It was nobody, one person that came in and said, oh, okay, here's what you need to do, and everything's better.
Well, actually, just the opposite is true. Because you came in here with Judge Sweeney begging for 10 COs. We found out the hearings weren't being had. The hearings are had, the 10 COs were permitted to be hired over there, which weren't, because it takes time to get them on. When the hearings were had, the bad guys left and everything calmed down over there. That was our recommendation. It wasn't my recommendation. It was the man standing behind you to your left. So, yeah, we did it. You're welcome. So I will take credit for that. I will take credit for putting pressure on people in that Juvenile Justice Center to get their act straight, to actually make command decisions and have the hearings. At that point in time, if you recall, everybody was worried about the children. Oh, and their rights and this and that. They're beating the hell out of your employees and other kids, and they're worried about the children. Well, you know what? You got to get tough sometimes. And we told you how to get tough, and I will give the judges credit. They got on board, and they moved forward. But everything that was recommended came from here, the county, from the sheriff's office.
I think there was a lot of suggestions and implementation of stuff that went on that was from the court's perspective and from the judges. I don't think we didn't come here and said, please help us, tell us what to do.
That's exactly what you did.
Well, I beg to differ.
Well, Don't go to the plain dealer editorial board after begging for 10 COs and saying that's the reason that there's a problem, which is what happened. The biggest problem was not having the hearings. Biggest problem, case closed. No argument. You had to get those bad guys out of that jail. That's how we did it. And then what the 10 more COs are doing, I don't know. Maybe you need them. We'll talk about that during budget. But to this date, they're still not hired.
Well, we're not at that number, but I can tell you right now that we interviewed 182 candidates for that position. We've newly hired 25, and we lost, for a number of reasons, 14. So we are constantly trying to interview folks and bring new people on, but if people leave, you sort of 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
And
So-
they run into that at the big boy jail too.
So-
And it's a constant problem, and these people are underpaid and overworked. We get it. We know it. We know that's a difficult job. But you are hiring more quality people, which
We
is
are
a good
absolutely
thing.
hiring more. We put in much better standards. We are hiring much more higher quality folks. And that's been a big help as well.
Right.
So,
Well, moving forward, I think we need a bigger look at this GPS and what you're doing, because it just seems, and I'm not picking on the juvenile court, but it just seems the courts have their ideas of what works and what doesn't work. And we have a process here that works, trying to save some money. If it could save us money on the back end, then that's a good thing by combining the systems. Just because you have a system and you're comfortable with it, which is, I always hear, well, we like it, that doesn't mean that it works, and it doesn't mean it's the best system out there. It might be, but I don't know that, because the only one telling me that is you.
well, I can also say that I don't think that you can always just take the adult systems and then throw it into the juvenile system. I think that the juvenile court has different priorities and different needs and different laws that they need to follow. And just because one agency has a program doesn't mean that every agency should copy that. I know juvenile court has really been on the forefront at the county of going in with other departments and other courts and other agencies to combine programs, combine contracts, and move forward. So that's something that we're very, very familiar with and very happy to do. But if it doesn't make sense, and I'm not convinced it would save any money whatsoever, I wouldn't do it just to do it, because then everything's sort of consolidated. You know, it's not just about, we like this system, because we go through a request for proposal process every 2 years on this. We get a lot of vendors who come in. We scrutinize them very, very closely, because it's a very competitive market. And I'm not really convinced that I think putting, youth on electronic monitoring is very, very different than putting an adult on electronic monitoring.
Well,
It's
good.
very, very different.
Well, once again, we're not trying to be adversaries here. We're trying to save money.
We are all about saving money and all about doing things smart and not just spending money to spend money. That is absolutely what we're trying to do at the
I
court.
don't think there's any problem in looking at it. And what I have right now is your opinion, which is fine and dandy, but it doesn't tell me if it's the right opinion. And we have a guy standing back to your left again that kind of runs all the safety in the county, and I think he should be determining what's going on with these jails and these people in these jails. Because quite honestly, he's the only one that I'm comfortable with that runs a jail in this county. Nobody at your jail do I trust. Nobody. Because of what was going on over there and the extent of what was going on over there and how long it was going on over there, and nobody would come to us, probably because you thought you had the right process in place. You didn't, until it got so out of control that you came to us.
Well, there was a lot of factors that fed into it, when things did get out of control.
People getting beat up. Your employees getting beat up.
Well, we
and
also
those
had
claims coming through
the
county.
prosecutor go over through the heartless felons, and we were all of a sudden inundated with a lot of gang members, and gang members that were over 18, that according to state law, even if we were binding them over, which is a very long process and a lot of hearings involved, that we had to keep them in the detention center, even if they were going down to general division for their hearings. That was the state law that changed several years ago. And they had to be shown that they were being disruptive in the detention center to actually be able to move them to the adult system. So it's not just you flick a switch and get these kids out, that there's a whole due process that needs to take place.
Got cleaned up pretty quick, though, once you came to us. That's all I'm saying, and that's a fact. That's a fact. There's no argument there.
Well,
So
I think
anyhow,
everyone has a
and maybe
different
some of these
opinion.
courts should realize there's 24 hours in the day. You got to have a lot of hearings. Hey, midnight's just a number. If that's what it comes to. You got to do the job, you got to do the job. Mr. Miller.
To Ms. Lippman, could you explain how the cell phone and landline systems work and how they differ from the GPS system?
right, so the different systems, it depends on which phone line you're hooked up to, and then that is what hooks up to essentially to the internet where the monitoring takes place. So with the landline system, you have a box which connects to your phone line in the house, and then you have the unit that's on your ankle, and it's kind of like a electronic tether, if you will, so that you only can go so far, and then that box then transmits the signals through the landline. The cell phone system does the same thing, but it's through a cell phone line.
So if you wander too far away, then it sends a signal to the
Right.
monitor.
It sends a tamper signal, a low battery signal, a out of range signal, lost power, and then if you're out of the area or too far from the box.
And typically, how far are the youth allowed? How wide is the area?
It depends. The way that the system that we have now, you actually go into their internet site and you sort of can determine what the parameters are. So if there's a youth that is going to school and has a job after work, that you sort of make that their area that they're allowed to go to. If you don't want them to go to a co-defendant's house, you don't want them to go to a certain gang territory or something else, you can actually sort of redline that area so that the system knows where the youth should be and shouldn't be.
Okay. Mr. Greenspan.
Great, thank you. Well, now that I've got both of you up there, let me ask, is there, so we're talking about a whole, basically a monitoring system. Is there any ORC provision that prevents or restricts the county and the juvenile system and the adult system using the same system?
No, I mean, I don't think so. There's no reason that they can't. I just think that juveniles and adults have different needs. And we don't have anyone to monitor those other than home detention officers and probation officers.
Yeah, all right, juveniles, all right, look, they broke the law. They're there for a reason. All right, so everybody forgets the victims. I'm not going to get on a soapbox and talk about victims' rights either, but how many juveniles are currently being monitored?
Currently? I don't have the number in front of me. I can tell you what we did in 12 months, the last 12 months. Is that helpful?
No, at any one time, let me ask that, at any one time, how many are being monitored?
I don't have the current number right now of how many that are being monitored. I know in a 12-month period of time, we monitor about 1,100 kids in a 12-month period of time.
Okay. So if you were to just amortize that, it's roughly about 85 kids a month.
Probably, and that's just our home
Let me
detention
rephrase
unit,
that.
not our probation youth.
I don't want to refer to them as kids anymore. 85 offenders. All right, because you break the law. If you're 17 or 19, the only difference is where you're going.
Well,
if you carjack someone, if you assault someone, if you're 17 or 19, the only thing that determines where you're going is a birthday.
The
You still committed a
vast
horrible
majority
crime.
of the youth on home detention are not adjudicated yet. So
Okay.
our probation youth have been adjudicated. These youth have not been adjudicated yet.
So how many probation?
The probation program, I don't have the numbers for probation in front of me because it is much smaller and they don't utilize GPS. They only use almost entirely the cell phone system, not the landline system.
So and we all know, I look to my left and my right, meaning to the executive's office, and the chairman has brought up the point about the budget and where we're heading. So if this, as the budgets are submitted, if either the executive or council was to consolidate and create a singular program for monitoring of offenders, youth or adult. It's irrelevant to me. They're offenders. You victimized somebody. You were there because you did damage to property or person. If the county was to create a singular program, all right, I know one of the courts may object to that and want to take us to court or have an order issued to segregate it out. But if in the best interest of the county, the safety of the residents of the county, not the offenders, not the quote unquote kids who in my mind by violating someone else's rights lost the status of being a kid. You're an offender. If we were to consolidate that into one program monitored by the sheriff's department, do you perceive there being an issue? I think I already know the answer. I feel like I'm an attorney, but do you perceive there being an issue if the county had a singular monitoring program?
In a word, yes. I think that it would cost more money, and I don't think it would meet the needs of the youth that are involved with the court. I think it would reduce the youth, the need, meeting those needs of youth, because you'd have another individual involved who is monitoring, who then would have to contact a home detention officer to tell a youth, to find out what's going on, why a youth is out of range, or what's going on with that youth. You'd have to buy units, and you'd have to have someone to install those units. You'd have to have extra county personnel that you would have to hire to monitor 24/7, to do the installation and take the units off. You would probably have to have someone who's just going to go after youth and parents to pay for units that were broken or stolen. And you're talking about a much higher percentage of kids and families that cannot pay for these systems.
So do you not?
I don't see what the upside is other than saying we have one program. I don't really see what the benefit is. I don't see it costing money, and I don't see it serving the needs of the county any better than what we have currently.
So do you not do any of those things?
Do any
monitor? You don't monitor.
We
you
have
don't
home
go after?
detention officers who monitor, and we have probation officers on the probation side that monitor that system currently, and we have a vendor who goes after, if they choose to, for lost and stolen equipment, but we don't have to buy that equipment. We don't have any cost for purchasing equipment whatsoever. We only pay for the daily rate for monitoring. That's our only expense in this.
So if the sheriff's deputy is sitting there monitoring at their stations, and there 3 stations now, 4 if I remember correctly, if he's sitting there, he or she is sitting there monitoring 100 offenders or 120 offenders, I'm sure there's some incremental cost of increase. They can only monitor X amount, but it just say then you don't have that cost. Then somebody violates, they go outside the predetermined zone. Either the sheriff's deputy goes and picks them up, or they contact your probation officer and he goes, or somebody. I see it actually as a savings. I don't see there being.
I don't see a savings. So they're going to pick this youth up and bring them to the detention center, where they're going to have to then be processed and put into the detention center, where our numbers are going to go up.
All right, I'm not going to cry a river over somebody who's broken the law, either been convicted or is charged with hurting someone or some property, who's been given an opportunity to be serve out time, or a period outside of being incarcerated, who violates that. So I'm supposed to feel sorry for them?
I'm not asking anyone to feel sorry for anyone, but I'm just asking to consider all the facts when you're talking about juveniles, which is different than talking about adults. And that's one of the reasons that juvenile court for over 100 years has had a separate system of justice than the adult, because you're dealing with something that's very different. You're dealing with kids. Yes, they do awful things. Yes, they break the law, but they are not the same as adults. It's just different.
Well, then maybe what we should do is we should eliminate the Juvenile Justice Center, increase the adult side, take over the beds you have there. If all these kids, if you want to treat these offenders under the age of 18 like kids, when they're not. They're kids by a birthday. They're not kids by the crimes they're committing.
Well, it's different than just their birthday, because it actually has to do with maturity. It has to do with growth. It has to do with brain maturity. I mean, this is all scientifically shown.
So the 60-year-old guy who gets as a victim of the game knockout by a 14-year-old gang member, what about that guy? That guy didn't know the kid was 14 or 22, but he's the victim.
I'm not saying that what youth do is is awful, is bad, and they shouldn't be held accountable for that. But I don't think the accountability system is the same for a kid who's 14 as an adult.
Well.
That's why 120 years ago, this county and this country decided that juveniles need to be treated differently, that the system of justice, of juvenile justice, is different than the system of adult justice.
If you're an offender and you violate an opportunity to not serve time in jail, and you go outside your zone or you cut your bracelet, you go back, you go to jail. That's it. All right, we're just going to sit here and ideological talk about an issue. So,
Mr. Germano, we're just trying to save money here, and you're fighting this thing.
You know what? I'm not trying to spend money, because I'm not convinced that it's a cheaper system.
Lower your voice,
I'm just not. I just don't think that. I mean, I'm the one who.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Are you an expert?
I would say that I am an expert in juvenile justice. I've been working in juvenile justice for over
detention?
15 years.
Juvenile justice
I've been working
detention.
in all.
Juvenile justice detention. You're an expert.
I
So
would
I'm
say
to
I'm
take your word as expert?
I would say that I know a lot about all the aspects of the juvenile court and the
Hey,
juvenile justice system.
I've been
Do
watching the
I know
NFL for
everything?
58 years, and I'm an expert. But ain't nobody going to hire me, and nobody listening to me. So you're telling me 13 years at the Juvenile Justice Center, you're an expert in juvenile detention.
No, I'm not saying that I'm an expert
Then
in juvenile
don't make
detention.
expert
but
claims.
But I am saying that I know quite a bit, and I've been working in the court for a long time, and I know how home detention works, and I know how electronic monitoring works, and I don't think that I'm up here speaking from a place of ignorance.
So you're telling me that if I brought somebody independently in here, an expert, to review this, and there's a cost savings, that your expert opinion was wrong?
I didn't say I had an expert opinion. I said I'm
I
not
asked you if
speaking
you're an
from.
expert.
And I didn't say I was. I said I'm not coming from a place of ignorance here, that I do have a lot of knowledge and I do know from what I talked about here. But I'm also saying that there's a lot of people out there in the world who know a lot more about juvenile detention than I do. But I can tell you what I know about Cuyahoga County Juvenile Detention Center and our electronic monitoring program and system. And I'm not convinced and that just because we're combining with the sheriff as a proposal, that's just going to save money. Maybe it will.
This
and maybe,
is at the level of discussion.
But I don't think that anybody knows that yet.
This is at a discussion level.
And that's fine.
And your defenses are incredible.
Well, I think in all due respect that you've really sort of put me a little bit in that position by coming at me a little bit.
How's that?
So, you know what, I'm not even going to address that because it's really not the issue at hand.
Well, the issue at hand is saving money, and that's what I'm all about.
And
that's
I
what
think
it's going
that's
to
what we
continue
are
to be
all about as well.
And I'm just telling you, we're trying to save money here. And the only pushback, initially when we first came out, we got pushback from everybody because nobody respected the new form of government. We had to feel our way through and sometimes throw our weight around. We didn't want to, but we had to. The only place that we don't have any control, quite honestly, are the courts, who seemingly are a black hole of money. And seemingly everything's going great. And it's really not going great. And every time we try and get involved to try and help, we're looked at as the outsiders trying to throw our weight around, and we're not. I'm just trying to save money. The sheriff has a program. I'm a layperson. I'm not an expert. I haven't been in it 13 years. I haven't been in law enforcement for 40 years. I'm just trying to get down, can we save money? You're telling me no, based on your opinion.
Based on my opinion, I don't think that we could save money, but I'm not saying that we can't have a discussion. We can't put the numbers down and look at it and then make a decision when we have the facts in front of us. But right now, I don't think we have the facts in front of us.
And that's what I'm saying. You don't have the facts in front of us, but you've made a determination that it's not going to work.
I've given my opinion.
Your expert opinion.
I've given my opinion.
Your 13-year.
If you want to call it an expert opinion, that is on you,
That's why I would
Councilman,
hire an expert.
not on me.
I'm not an expert. The man behind you to your left's an expert. But I'm not an expert, and you're not an expert. He is. And I would like his opinion down the line. You know, it just so happens he started a GPS program. It's greatly successful. You have a program, we don't know. I don't know. Does everybody that cut their bracelet off, just one last question. I'm an offender, I cut my bracelet off, do I go to jail? Or do I find a soft person over there that looks upon me as, well, it's a two-time offender, let's give him a new bracelet? Does everybody go to jail? Is there a process? Can you deliver to me, here's what happens to people that destroy property after they're waiting for their adjudication? Do they go to jail?
If they, first of all, youth don't go to jail, they go to the detention center.
No.
But if they cut off their monitor, they are violating their home detention and they go to a hearing, and that is decided by a jurist.
And do you know, I don't know if you know, what's the percentage of those folks that destroy private property? Are they held accountable and do they go to jail for it?
If they're held accountable for the private property, that would determine if the vendor who owns the property filed charges, whether or not they go to the detention center or to shelter care for that violation of home detention. That I don't know the percentage that do. Some do, some don't.
Okay, we'll hopefully down the road have further discussions on this. Maybe get an expert's opinion. Maybe you are right. Maybe you're wrong. I don't know.
Maybe.
But if it saves the county money, I can tell you what direction we're gonna be driving the truck. Maybe you are saving us money. I don't know. Mr. Germano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I understand what you were driving at, Mr. Greenspan, but there is a difference between juvenile and adult. And I think as important as money, it should be best practices.
Thank you.
And I don't know if we're doing the best practices, but we should be doing the best practices that are efficient. So I don't think one size fits all. I know that. I'm not an expert, but I've had a lot of involvement with youth in both sports, Boy Scouts, so on and so forth. So I think we should be striving for best practices and making sure we're using the most efficient best practice that we can.
Okay, we're done. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
Councilman, I have to agree with Chuck Germana. I don't feel that children should be treated as adults, but I also hear my colleague's point. Everybody that works for the county or in a role for the county should think first and foremost, how do we save this county dollars? Because we have a lot of programs that are going to come toward us, but if we don't have the dollars, if we're not being efficient in the dollars that we have, we can't create new. And I think that is what we all should be working towards. Whether you have the best program or not, I think everything deserves a conversation. Because we talked about that earlier in Human Resources, Appointments and Equity Committee, about the health presentation, the healthcare costs. So, you know, let's have cooler heads. I think if we all come in with that focus, that we need to save this, whatever department we work in, that we need to save this county dollars. It's a benefit for all of us, for the taxpayers, which we all are a part of, as well as more programs that we could sponsor or put on because we have been efficient with dollars. Okay.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah.
Mr. Harrison.
Just quickly, I think I also support yourself and Mr. Greenspan's point about, at the end of the day, it's about cost savings, to see what works best. And there's nothing wrong with looking to see if maybe change results in the cost savings, whether it's one program or many. And that, in my opinion, youth or not, once you make that decision to do something that's illegal, then you make that decision, then you become an offender. You're no longer a youth. You're a person who, of a certain age, only separates you from adults is a birthday, like Mr. Greenspan said, and you are that offender. And I felt like that from when the young man down the street from me broke into my vehicle. I didn't have any sympathy on them because they knew what they were doing. You know right from wrong. You know something that you shouldn't be doing. You know things that you should be doing. And clearly when you commit an offense, you know it was wrong and you know the consequences. So whether it's real 24-hour GPS or whether it's another system, I think is worth us looking at to see what is the best way for us to, one, save money and to whatever the best practice is.
Okay, and with that, we thank you for being here. If
Thank
you
you.
in any way felt in a corner or pressured, we apologize. I certainly do. I enjoy
Thank you.
the tete-a-tete with you. And rest assured, our only concern up here is to save money. And, you know, when you are the guys that have to look at the checkbook and dole it out, it's difficult. It's difficult. I've never been in elected life where we've had discretionary dollars. Never have been. And I don't anticipate as long as I'm around, I'm never going to be able to see discretionary dollars. And that means we've got to scrimp and save and cut and dice and slice. And, you know, we're just spitballing here. So, you know, things can get a little hot, but you're looking at it from your point of view, and it's not an easy job that they do over there. I get it. Believe me, I get it. I've been in that system for 30 years, at the top of it looking down. I understand that. I've talked to so many judges, Pat Gallagher being one of my favorite, no relation, and poor Pat back in those days, all he would do is, Michael, I just want to keep these kids to the point where they don't kill someone, so they turn 18 and then I don't have to deal with them anymore. Because I don't know what to do with them. That's 45 years ago. They didn't know what to do with these kids. And here we are today, we still really don't know what to do with these kids. So it is a process in motion, and we're probably, I think, heading in the right direction. But still, if there's just a chance to save money on a program that may work, we should look at it. And if it doesn't work and doesn't make sense, and people are uncomfortable, then either we've got to change minds and hearts or just let it go. And that's where we're at right now. So,
Okay.
so it's just, this is all about dollars and cents, you know. There's no need to feel attacked, and if you felt attacked, you weren't. I certainly apologize for that if it did. But when you rest assured, I think you understand when you come in to this committee and the committee of the whole, we're gonna have questions when it comes to some dollars and cents, and that's our job. It's plain and simple.
No, I understand that, and the court is always happy to sit down with anyone from the county, from county council, or any of the departments, and have conversations and look at programming and look at how we save dollars, and that's something that we do every single day, and we are always open to that, but it is a conversation.
Right, and again, you have a job to do, the judges have a job to do, you know, but there is a lot of pushback, but we gotta get over that, and we gotta get down to what's best for everybody involved. And that's a fine line. So we're trying to get to that fine line without stepping over it. So, as I say, you know, nothing personal. This is all about business.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you, Mr. Bova. Mr. Bova, do you have anything to add there? Thank you. Miscellaneous business, anybody? Mr. Miller?
Just want to remind everybody that the Council Operations and Intergovernmental Committee will meet in about a half hour at 3 o'clock. We have a considerable agenda with our lobby representatives and the collaboration presentation and the Inspector General, so I'd like to start on time. And everybody who's not on the committee is also cordially invited to come for these significant presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Refreshments by Mr. Miller? No?
That'll be at the budget hearings.
Very good. Very good. Other public comment?
No, Mr. Chair, no one is signed in.
Thank you, we're adjourned.